The shock of being left behind is not something the mind can fully prepare for because it is a collision between expectation and reality. Imagine thinking there is always more time, that tomorrow will give another chance. That grace is like a credit card with no limit and no expiration date. Then suddenly, in a moment that is swifter than the blink of an eye, people vanish. Conversations are cut short mid-sentence. Families sit down for dinner and realize someone isn't there. Cars on highways lose their drivers. Children are gone from their parents' arms. The quiet after that chaos is deafening. And in that silence, the heart screams louder than the world ever could. For the ones left behind, the first wave isn't just grief, it's disbelief. How could this happen? How could it happen so fast? How could it happen to them? Denial fights to take over, but deep down there's a knowing this wasn't a tragedy of nature or an accident of chance. This was the fulfillment of a promise, once spoken over and over, but too often drowned out by distractions, excuses, and the comforts of this world. And now, those who thought they had time realize time has betrayed them. There will be people who once sat in church pews, who once lifted their hands in worship, who once whispered prayers when life was heavy, but they never surrendered. They got close enough to taste God, but never close enough to let Him transform them. They lived on borrowed faith, borrowed conviction, borrowed moments. And now, standing in the emptiness left behind, they realized that salvation was never something to be borrowed. It had to be owned. The shock of being left behind is also the shock of self-awareness. It peels back the layers of excuses and exposes what was really in the heart. The person who thought they had time to forgive suddenly feels the weight of bitterness chaining them down. The one who assumed they'd surrender after one more season of living for themselves now sees the season has closed. The lukewarm heart that tried to serve both God and self is forced to face the reality that divided loyalty always leads to complete loss. The most haunting part of this moment is not just what happened, but what could have been. Regret becomes a voice that echoes louder than every sermon ever preached. Regret doesn't need a microphone. It whispers, and yet it pierces. It says, you knew, you heard, you felt the pull, and still you waited. That is the weight that breaks people in the aftermath, not just the absence of loved ones, but the absence of the chance they thought they had. And yet, in that shock, something else happens. The human soul, when stripped of comfort, either collapses or awakens. Some will collapse under the shame, under the terror, under the realization that the path forward will be darker than they ever imagined. But others will awaken. The silence will force them to confront the truth they spent years avoiding. The emptiness will strip away the illusions they clung to. And though the shock is devastating, it can also become the doorway to desperate surrender. What people don't realize is that the shock is mercy in disguise. Because as long as breath remains in the body, there is still a decision that can be made. The cost will be heavier, the opposition will be fiercer, but eternity is still on the table. In that moment, the shock of being left behind becomes the first taste of a test that will decide whether a soul bows to fear or clings to faith. The reality is this: none of us are promised tomorrow, and none of us can outrun the weight of eternity. To imagine the shock of being left behind is not to scare the heart, but to awaken it. Because if we can picture that moment now, if we can feel the ache of regret before it becomes reality, then maybe we can make the choice that saves us from ever knowing that silence firsthand. The shock will be real, the pain will be raw, but the choice before that moment is still in our hands right now. Regret is one of the heaviest weights a soul can carry because it doesn't just remind you of what happened. It keeps echoing what could have been. When the rapture has taken place and the world is left in fragments, the sound that will haunt many isn't the chaos in the streets. It's the silence in their hearts filled with words they can't take back and choices they can't undo. It's the realization that they heard the truth but didn't move on it, that they felt the tug but brushed it aside, that they were offered grace but delayed their surrender. Regret becomes a mirror that won't break, forcing the heart to look at every missed opportunity and every ignored moment of conviction. Some will replay the nights they sat in services but scrolled on their phones. They will remember the times they felt tears sting their eyes but pushed the feeling down, afraid of looking weak. They will remember conversations with people who tried to point them toward God. Conversations they laughed off or dismissed with a quick excuse. And now those voices return not as whispers but as thunder. Regret magnifies what we took lightly and forces us to see how valuable those small chances really were. The weight of regret isn't just sorrow. It's the crushing sense of too late. We live our lives believing time is on our side, that we'll get it together when we're older, when we're ready, when life slows down. But regret proves time was never ours to control. The very thing people assumed would stretch endlessly before them collapses in an instant. And they are left staring at the truth they once believed they had more time to embrace. That truth doesn't change just because the moment passed. It stays the same, but the chance to choose it slips away. There will be parents who regret never praying with their children. There will be spouses who regret playing with love instead of protecting it. There will be young people who regret chasing pleasure when purpose was calling their name. There will be leaders who regret preaching convenience when conviction was needed. Regret won't discriminate. It will visit every heart that chose comfort over surrender, every soul that assumed God could be kept on standby. And the weight of it will feel heavier than any prison chain. What makes regret so unbearable in that moment is that it's not the absence of knowledge. It's not that they didn't know. It's that they knew but didn't act. They heard the messages, they saw the signs, they felt the conviction, but instead of letting it transform them, they brushed it off like background noise. And now, in the emptiness of being left behind, they realized the truth they ignored was the very truth that could have saved them. That realization digs deeper than sorrow, it's torment. But even in the torment of regret, God's heart was always for mercy. The reason regret cuts so deep is because every missed chance was wrapped in love. Every ignored warning was an expression of grace. Every delay was patience extended. And when all of that is seen in hindsight, the weight becomes unbearable. It's like recognizing the arms that tried to pull you out of the fire, only to realize you kept pulling away until the flames consumed you. Yet regret, as heavy as it is, can still serve a purpose for those left behind. It can either paralyze or propel. Some will let the weight of it crush them into despair, convinced that since they missed the rapture, they've missed redemption. But others will let regret break their pride, strip their excuses, and push them into desperate surrender. The same regret that once felt like chains can, in the hands of a willing heart, become the fire that finally burns away compromise. The question becomes, what will we do with the awareness of regret now before that day arrives? Because the truth is, regret doesn't have to be our story. We don't have to wait until the silence of being left behind to let conviction do its work. We can surrender while grace is still flowing freely. We can bow before God now, not in fear of regret, but in gratitude that He's given us the chance to escape it altogether. The weight of regret after the rapture will be too much to bear, but the weight of surrender now will set us free forever. Darkness has a way of creeping in slowly until suddenly it feels like it owns the room. When the rapture has taken place and the light of God's people has been removed, the world will experience a darkness it has never known before. This won't just be the kind of darkness that makes you reach for a lamp or light a candle. It will be spiritual, emotional, and moral darkness, the kind that suffocates hope and distorts truth. Imagine a world where the very presence that restrained evil has lifted, where the prayers of the righteous no longer cover nations, and where the salt and light of believers no longer hold back decay. What follows is chaos, but beneath the chaos lies a chilling emptiness that cannot be escaped. We've already seen glimpses of what happens when people call evil good and good evil. But those glimpses are nothing compared to what will unfold when the world is left to its own devices. Laws will shift to protect wickedness. Leaders will rise who celebrate deception, and cultures will grow bolder in their rebellion against God. The voice of truth will not just be ignored, it will be hunted. Those who dare to hold on to faith in the aftermath will become targets, not because they've done wrong, but because they refuse to bow to the systems of this dark age. The atmosphere will be thick with deception, and the temptation to give in will feel almost irresistible. The darkness won't just be outside, it will press in on the inside. Fear will settle into hearts like an unwelcome guest. The absence of peace will gnaw at people's minds until they feel like they're unraveling. Those who never prayed before will cry out, but the weight of despair will make it harder to believe their prayers can pierce the heaviness surrounding them. The silence left by the missing voices of believers will be haunting. A reminder that the ones who once carried the light are gone, and now the world must face what it looks like without them. In that darkness, deception will dress itself as light. Leaders will emerge promising answers, solutions, and unity. They will offer security in exchange for surrender, peace in exchange for allegiance. But the peace they promise will be poisoned, and the unity they create will be built on lies. Many will fall for it, not because they are evil at heart, but because the darkness will have dulled their discernment. When hope is scarce, any flicker of relief can look like salvation, even if it's just another shadow. But those who remain faithful will see the truth, and the truth will cost them. To stand against the darkness will mean standing alone. To cling to faith will mean letting go of safety. To refuse deception will mean enduring persecution. It will feel like the entire world is pressing against the few who still believe, but in that pressure, their endurance will shine. The darkness will try to swallow them, but the small light they carry will become a testimony that darkness can never fully erase what God has planted. This is why the thought of being left behind should shake us now, not later. Because if faith feels hard in a world where grace is still available, imagine what it will feel like when grace has stepped aside. If it feels heavy to stand for truth now, imagine standing for it when the whole world is against it. The darkness that is coming is not meant for us to survive in. It's meant to remind us why we can't afford to miss the moment of being caught up with Him. And yet, as terrifying as that darkness will be, it doesn't have to be our future. We are still living in the time of light, the time of mercy, the time of open doors. We still have access to the presence of God that keeps us, covers us, and strengthens us. We still have the chance to let His light burn so deeply within us that no amount of darkness can overtake us. The choice is before us now, while the lamp of grace is still lit. Because when the darkness comes, it won't be just the absence of light. It will be the presence of despair. Endurance isn't something we think about much when life feels easy, but when the ground shakes and everything familiar is stripped away, endurance becomes the only thing that keeps you standing. After the rapture, when the world is wrapped in confusion and darkness, endurance will no longer be optional. It will be the lifeline for anyone who chooses not to bow to the systems rising in that hour. The decision to follow God will suddenly carry a cost so heavy that it will test the very core of a person's faith. But even then, even in the chaos, there will be a call to endure. The ones left behind will wake up in a world where following Christ will no longer be tied to convenience, culture, or comfort. It won't be about attending services when it feels good or posting scriptures when it looks inspiring. It will be a matter of survival, not survival of the body, but of the soul. To declare faith in Jesus will invite ridicule, isolation, and persecution. To hold on to that faith will mean losing the approval of the world and possibly even the safety of life itself. But that is where the power of endurance shows up, because endurance is not about how strong you are. It's about how much you're willing to cling to the one who is strong when you're not. Endurance is choosing to believe when believing feels foolish. It's standing tall when everything in you wants to bend. It's refusing to compromise, even when compromise seems like the only way to make the pain stop. In that time, endurance will separate those who truly surrender from those who only wanted the benefits of faith without the cost. And though the weight of it will be heavy, the reward will be eternal. Because endurance doesn't just preserve life, it preserves destiny. Think about how easy it is right now to give up at the first sign of struggle. How many times do people walk away from faith because prayers didn't get answered fast enough? Because trials lasted longer than they thought? Because the world offered shortcuts that seemed easier? If endurance is a struggle now, imagine the intensity of holding on when everything around you is designed to make you let go. That's why the word says those who endure to the end shall be saved. It won't be about who starts the journey, but who refuses to quit no matter how much the journey costs. For some, endurance will look like hiding their faith quietly, whispering prayers in the dark, holding scripture in their hearts when there are no Bibles left to open. For others, endurance will look like boldness, declaring the truth openly, even if it means losing everything. And though their paths may look different, their hearts will carry the same flame, a refusal to bow to anything less than the true and living God. But let's be honest, endurance won't feel glamorous. It won't always look victorious. It will feel like pressing forward with trembling hands and tear-stained faces. It will feel like dragging your soul through nights of fear and mornings of uncertainty. And yet endurance has never been about looking strong. It has always been about choosing not to quit. In that season, those who hold on will discover that even in the midst of unimaginable darkness, God's strength will meet them in their weakness. And here's the beauty of endurance. It always carries testimony. Every soul that refuses to bow will become a living witness that the enemy cannot win. Every act of faith, no matter how small, will echo louder than the roar of deception. Every prayer whispered in the silence will climb higher than the noise of rebellion. And when it seems like the world has drowned out the voice of truth, endurance will prove that truth never dies. Right now, in this moment, endurance still matters, because if we cannot hold on to God in a world where His grace is still abundant, how can we expect to stand in a world where His restraint has lifted? The practice of endurance begins today, in the choices we make, in the faith we protect, in the way we cling to God when life doesn't make sense. The endurance we grow now will prepare us for the tests ahead, whether we face them in this life or in the one to come, because endurance, even when it feels like barely holding on, is still victory in the eyes of heaven. Comfort is one of the most dangerous deceptions because it feels so safe, so harmless, so normal. When the rapture has taken place and the world is scrambling for answers, there will be voices rising up that promise stability. They will say, follow us and you'll have peace. Align with us and you'll be secure. Trust us and everything will be all right again. And to a world drowning in fear, those promises will sound like salvation. But what looks like comfort will in reality be a trap. It will be the bait that draws souls into chains they cannot see until it's too late. That is the nature of deception. It doesn't present itself as a snare. It presents itself as relief. It tells you it can soothe the ache in your soul, quiet the fear in your mind, and make life easier if you just bow to it. But in that hour, the very systems that appear to offer refuge will be designed to steal allegiance from God. They will offer temporary ease at the cost of eternal loss. And many will fall because the pain of the moment will blind them to the weight of eternity. Even now we can see how easily people trade truth for comfort. We silence conviction because it makes us uneasy. We justify compromise because standing firm feels hard. We choose what's popular because being set apart feels lonely. If comfort can pull us away from God in a world where His grace is still active, imagine how powerful the lure will be in a world consumed with darkness. That's why deception is so effective. It doesn't come waving a flag of evil. It comes wrapped in what feels good. It doesn't announce itself as destruction. It whispers as peace. In those days, there will be leaders who rise with charisma and authority. They will speak to the deep need for security. and nations will listen. They will perform signs and wonders that dazzle the eyes but poison the soul. They will present themselves as saviors when in reality they are pawns of destruction. And those who are desperate for safety will follow blindly, because when fear grips the heart, even lies can look like truth if they promise relief. That is why the deception of comfort will be the greatest danger, because it will not feel like danger at all. The tragedy is that comfort has always been a master illusion. It promises rest but delivers emptiness. It promises safety but breeds bondage. It promises life but drains the soul. In the time after the rapture, the stakes will be too high to take that bait. Choosing comfort in that hour will mean rejecting the very faith that could lead to eternal life. And the ones who bow to it will discover too late that they exchanged forever for a fleeting moment of ease. But there will be some who see through it, some who refuse to be fooled by sweet words and false promises, some who know that the peace of the world is a counterfeit compared to the peace of God. For them, resisting will not be easy. It will mean losing access to systems designed to control. It will mean being cast out, marginalized, even hunted. Yet they will choose to endure the storm rather than bow to deception. Their courage will not be rooted in their own strength, but in the conviction that eternity outweighs every temporary struggle. We have to ask ourselves even now, how easily do we let comfort sway us? Do we water down our faith so we can fit in? Do we chase after things that soothe us in the moment but leave us empty later? Because the habits of today shape the choices of tomorrow. If we learn to say no to false comfort now, we will be better prepared to resist it when the pressure is greater. If we practice trusting God more than we trust convenience now, we will have the strength to stand when deception demands our allegiance. The deception of comfort is powerful because it offers everything we think we want while hiding everything it will cost. But when the world is darkest and deception is strongest, the only true comfort will be found in the presence of God. Every other promise will crumble, but his word will still stand, because the comfort that comes from this world will never protect us, but the comfort that comes from God will never forsake us. Urgency is something we rarely embrace until we're standing on the edge of a moment we can't undo. We treat tomorrow like it's guaranteed, like it's a promise written into the contract of our lives. We say, I'll pray tomorrow. I'll surrender when I'm ready. I'll change when life slows down. But the rapture will shatter that illusion. When it happens, there will be no more time to prepare, no more room for excuses. No more waiting for the right season. That's why the call to prepare isn't for later. It's for right now. The urgency of now is the heartbeat of God's grace. He doesn't warn us of what's coming to scare us. He warns us to wake us up. He gives us this moment, this breath, this chance, because he knows the weight of what lies ahead. Every second that passes without surrender is a second we gamble with eternity. And eternity is too long, too costly, too final to gamble with. When the trumpet sounds, it won't matter how much money you had in your bank account. It won't matter what kind of car you drove, how successful you looked, or how many followers knew your name. What will matter is the state of your soul. Was it surrendered, or was it still holding on to control? That is the only thing that will determine whether you are caught up or left behind. And yet, too often we push that reality aside because it feels inconvenient. We think we have time, but time is not in our hands. Look at how fragile life already is. One phone call can change everything. One diagnosis can interrupt every plan. One accident can alter the course of an entire family. We know life is fragile, and still we live like it's permanent. That's the trick of complacency. It convinces us to delay decisions that should have been made yesterday. But the rapture won't wait for our schedules. It won't wait until we feel ready. It will come suddenly, and only those who chose him now will be prepared then. The urgency of now is about more than fear. It's about freedom. Because every moment we delay surrender, we live beneath the fullness of what God has already offered us. We carry weights he's willing to lift. We stumble in darkness when his light is available. We chase validation from people when his acceptance is already secure. The urgency is not just about escaping what's coming. It's about stepping into the life that's available today. Still, we treat grace like it's a river that will never dry up, forgetting that seasons shift. Right now, grace flows freely, but when that moment comes and the church is caught up, the river will not flow the same way. Choosing him then will cost far more than choosing him now. Why would we wait to pay a higher price for what he offers freely in this very moment? Some will hear these words and still push them away, thinking, I'll get serious later. I'll surrender when I'm older. I'll come to him when I've lived a little more. But the tragedy is that later never comes for so many. Later is stolen by distractions, by pride, by the lie that time belongs to us. Later is the language of deception. Now is the language of salvation. There is power in now. Right now is where chains can break. Right now is where hearts can be restored. Right now is where destinies can be rewritten. We don't have to wait until regret crushes us, until darkness surrounds us, until the weight of being left behind forces us to surrender. We can choose him while the doors of grace are wide open, while his spirit is still drawing us. While mercy is still extending its hand, the urgency of now is not a warning to scare us into obedience. It is an invitation to awaken us into destiny. Because every moment we wait, we risk waking up on the other side of eternity with nothing left but regret.